Hi there, everyone. Welcome back to Chase and Thoughts with Chase. I'm being a bit quiet because it is like 11 p.m. in the night on a Thursday. So I'm just going to give a bit of context for this. I have gotten a new face cam. It has RGB lights on it. I would show you, but evidently I can't really do like a show the face cam. So, fun fact about this is the second time I am recording this episode, and I am recording it Thursday night, and I need the episode to be out on Friday. And if you're wondering, Eswen, why are you recording the episode so late? Well, I went to go edit it earlier today, and I realized that my webcam has a microphone on it. I really do not want to have to do this a third time. So, for those of you who don't know, my webcam doesn't just have a webcam function, it also has a small microphone on it. But I don't need the microphone because I have this good microphone that you're seeing right in front of my face, like 6 inches from my face. And the problem was it recorded both of them, and it was like super echoey and janky, so I couldn't use the audio from it at all for the podcast episode, which sucked because I had some actual good rhythm going later on in the podcast. But later on in the recording, I mean, not in the podcast, in the recording. But I'm sure that if you're watching this video, you have seen my As One Direct. And if you have not seen my As One Direct, I will link it in the description because it's very important because I made an announcement about the podcast. Guest episodes are coming. And if you're wondering about guest episodes, yes, I know it's taken me nearly all of January to get the podcast up and going. And that's because, as I said, my face cam broke down in the middle of December when I tried recording an episode for the end of 2024. So I had to wait until now in order to get my face cam and then get it up and recording. So here I am now. So today's podcast episode isn't really organized. I'm just going to say that. I do kind of want to talk about my experience watching Moana 2 in theaters, but that's about all I have. Everything else is literally just whatever I say off the top of my head. And actually, before we do get started, there is another thing I want to mention. So, I will be hopefully be starting guest episodes in February. I need to contact a couple other people to see what we need to do for the first podcast episode and when we can do it. So definitely, it will be fun. Will be hype. Also, second off, I also have another channel I need to get working on and launch, so that'll be fun. So I'm just gonna go through the only part of this entire podcast episode I have somewhat planned out in my head, which is talking about my experience watching Moana 2 in theaters. Now, I will say this, it's been nearly 2 months since the movie came out. And I say nearly 2 months because it came out on the 27th of November. I went and watched it on the 29th. And it is January, let me just check real quick, January 16th. As of the date of recording this. Though it might be January 17th by the time I am finished recording this, because I'm recording this at 11:30 at night, and who knows, I might take 30 minutes yapping, and bam, it's 12 o'clock. Yeah, but needless to say, I will be editing the video tomorrow. Editing podcast videos generally doesn't take long. Oh, and also, if you're new to the podcast and got recommended this video and you're still watching, first off, thank you for watching this part of the video. Second off, I'm so sorry about this. This is kind of the essence of the podcast. I do tend to get sidetracked a lot, but I do always know how to bring it back to the topic I was talking about originally. It just may take me a moment or two to get back to that topic. So, the topic we were going to talk about is my experience watching Moana 2 in theaters. We went to Crownburger before we went to the movie theaters, but it's not like that particular detail really matters. What you guys really care about is just my general highlight experience. So we went to the movie theater, which by the way we never really did very often even before the pandemic, and it's even rarer now that the pandemic actually has happened in the aftermath of it. I mean, movie theaters have mostly recovered, but it just hasn't been the same, if I'm being honest. AMC Theater. It was an AMC Theater, I remember. Thinking like somewhere in Provo. I can't exactly remember where it was. I just remember it was an AMC Theater. and we obviously got popcorn. Which, by the way, fun fact about movie popcorn: the reason why it tastes so gosh darn delicious and so different compared to like microwave popcorn or homemade popcorn is because of one singular secret ingredient. Obviously, you have the popcorn and you have your butter that you add, but there's one other thing that sends it over the edge, and that is something called flavor call. Now, flavor call is in all movie theater popcorn, and if you're wondering if it's some kind of exclusive thing that, oh, only movie theaters have access to supply chains of it, no, you can buy it for yourself. And you don't even need to add a lot. Like in a small bowl, you only need like a quarter of a teaspoon. Like it's not a lot at all. I'm not sure if it's that much specifically, by the way. Don't take that as specific measurement as fact, but just know you do not need a lot of it, and you can buy a large amount of it, and it will last you a long time, unless you happen to really, really love popcorn. But if you're a fan of movie theater popcorn and you want to recreate the experience in your own home, there are two ways you can do it. One, you can buy movie theater popcorn and look for it containing flavor call. If it has flavor call, then it's the genuine deal. If not, keep searching until you find a brand that does have it, or add it yourself. Or two, you just get like the bags of microwave popcorn, and you can add a small bit of it to it and mix it up or something like that. As I said, this is only when you're making movie theater popcorn. And I don't know why I went off on like I would say it's like minute 30, nearly 2-minute tangent. I'll probably know when I edit the video about movie theater popcorn. It's just something really cool that I know about, and I wanted to share with you guys because I'm pretty sure not everyone knows about it. And it's just a nice thing to know about. It's not like a super big life-changing thing. It's just like, oh, well, that was nice to know about. What was really special about this movie theater experience that set it apart from pretty much every other movie theater experience I had before was not the popcorn. The popcorn is obviously amazing, but what really set it apart was the chairs. So the chairs were really interesting because we didn't get the cheap recliner chairs, the cheap like fold up chairs that we usually do. We got the actual good chairs, and there's a few features on them. First off, they have seat warmers. Yes, this is an actual thing. They have a button. You can't see it, but it would be like on your right hand side. There's two different buttons. One is one that controls the heating setting, and then the other is like a little further down. Obviously, you can't see my hands, so this isn't going to make a lot of sense. Second is that you just kind of tilt it like this, so the seats could like recline back, and you could just recline back and relax. You had butt warmers, so that was really cool. Technically, they're seat warmers, but both terms are correct. One is just more humorous than the other. But the final feature, and this is the part that really takes your movie theater experience from this to this, was that it had like this weird vibration thing where the chair would kind of move and vibrate at certain moments. I really should put that in a better way. It would, I don't know, it would kind of shake and just move like, and then just kind of move a little, and very slightly. It's like not super bad, but it's definitely enough where you can notice it and enjoy it. But that's not the part that was cool. The part that's cool about it is that it's responsive to what's happening on screen. So I'll give you an example. Say that in the movie Moana 2, like there's a sea and you're in the sea area and a big wave's coming and you're riding a big wave in a ship or whatever into a certain direction. It would tilt the chair very so slightly and just kind of like this in a very slightly. The best way I can honestly compare it to is a roller coaster, if I'm being completely honest. And certainly it was a roller coaster of an experience, literally, and in terms of my seating experience and in terms of of the movie itself, which I will get into in just a second. And afterwards, I talked to my parents and I'm like, so I think we can all collectively agree that when we go to the movie theaters again, we're gonna buy those tickets, right? Because we only go like once, maybe twice a year at most. So we're like, yeah, we all agreed. Like, if we ever go to the movie theater again, we're getting the good seats because we don't go like super often. And even if we did, we'd still get the good seats because, well, they're the good seats. They actually make the movie theater from it's just a big screen showing to an actual experience for me. And in terms of Moana 2, I'm just going to say this. My opinion is not going to be objective. My take on this movie is not going to be objective at all, or really just like generally based at looking at how good the story was or how good the cinematography was. And this is all for a very simple reason. I am a Pacific Islander. I'm a Samoan, to be specific. I've never been cagey about my heritage. Like, it's not something I constantly bring up, but I've never been cagey about it. I have 3 tags on my Twitch that I always keep up, and one of them is mentioning of me being a Pacific Islander, because I am proud of my heritage. And because I'm an Islander, and because I went into this with not a mindset of looking at how good the movie was, but rather just enjoying whatever experience came into it and setting aside how objectively good the movie was for a later time, my opinion of the movie as of such is very biased towards being more positive. And I do definitely feel like a lot of people would be upset by that, because it's like, oh, Disney's making cheap cash grabs. And I definitely feel that way about most of what Disney's released this year, but not so much Moana. It seems like they put a lot more work into Moana 2's story than they did anything else that they've made. Not saying that it's a great movie. I'm just saying that, yeah, it's better than whatever Disney's been giving us for the majority of the year. It's better than Lion King Mufasa, I'll say that much. And speaking of Lion King Mufasa, I'm just going to pause for a second, because when I saw this in movie theaters, I'm like, okay, why are they making this? Who asked for this? Why are they making this? What is the point of doing this? It wasn't that I thought it was going to be a bad movie. In fact, I'm just going to say this, it looked better than the first movie, than the first live-action Lion King movie, which I absolutely despised, because I grew up with the unanimated version of the animated version, and I absolutely loved the animation. It's a really good movie. Definitely not one of my favorites by a long shot, but I did quite enjoy it, and it wasn't ever an undesirable experience. And then you take a look at the Lion King, at the live action version, and see just like there's no soul in it. And you just makes you want to hurl at the absolute horrid difference between the two. The difference is night and day. At least in the second one, it looks better. It still looks soulless, but at least you can have an easier time telling that the animals actually have expressions. And that is just not moving their mouths. There's actual expression to it, which is an upgrade. It's not good, but it's an upgrade. So I'll give it full points for that. Still doesn't mean that. And I'm so sorry. I say I'm going to explain Moana 2, and yet I go on a tangent about a completely different movie that I only saw the trailer of before the movie started. But if you're looking for my opinion of Moana 2 from a 1 to a 10, it would probably be like an 8 out of 10 for me personally, if I'm being honest. It was really fun, and I will definitely say that learning about the whole mechanic of the luxury seats definitely complemented the experience very well. I'm just going to say that. I will say that some of the decisions they made in the story confused me, but I didn't mind it, because I quite honestly am not a good writer, and I don't think I could have come up with something better. I like the fact that they gave Moana a little sister, personally, because I think it adds a new level of conflict for her leaving this time around. It's a new pressure, a new burden, a new responsibility that she has to weigh and consider the pros and cons of. It's not a straight decision of, oh, I need to go to Motunui, or whatever the heck the name of the island is. I know, I'm a disappointment to Samoans everywhere because I cannot pronounce it. The name of the island, for the love of me. I have not seen the movie since it came out in theaters because it hasn't come out on Disney Plus yet. So I can't remember the name of the island that they were trying to go to. And the fact that they added an entire crew was an interesting touch. Was a bit of an interesting touch. I felt like they could have done a little bit more with the characters, but it's fine. It's fine. As I said, I probably couldn't make something better, if I'm being fully honest here. So, yeah. Overall, my rating of it is an 8 out of 10. I don't want to spoil too much about the movie because I don't want this to become one of those nerdy, in-depth analysis of the movie and why the villain of the movie was a waste and why the movie was a waste and why it's an ultimately mid-movie that you should taint your time watching. I'm just gonna say that if you like the first Moana, this one, you're probably gonna like the second Moana, though the antagonist is equally as bland as the first one. I'm just gonna say it. And by bland, I mean that he's basically not present at all. That being said, I feel like that makes sense given the story and given the imposing threat that you're trying to put him up as. Because as much as I think it would have been sick to see Maui kick the main villain's butt, I also feel like that would have undermined him. And the fact that you do indeed get to see him at the end credits, still very much active, just shows how much of a threat he really is. I don't think they should make a Moana 3. They could make like a Disney Plus original short or maybe even a short series, kind of focusing on Moana's sister, kind of like how they did with the Olaf series. I think that would be a nice little thing to have. And also, I'm just gonna say this while we're on the topic of shows and movies. Hot take, they need to do a season 2 of Olaf. Those 5 episodes were absolute peak. And they need to do more of that because Olaf is legitimately the best character in Frozen. And this is coming from a person who hates Frozen. Olaf is like the best thing to happen to that series. And as I said, I hated the first Frozen because it had a terrible theme behind it. And the second one was if I'm being perfectly honest. It was certainly, to me at least, an upgrade from the first one, and you got a lot more backstory reveal and dramatic twists that you could totally see coming from a mile away, but still. So anyway, I guess the topic of this video is probably just gonna be just like about movies and shows. Like I said, I wanted to talk about Moana 2, and I just went on a whole tangent of a whole bunch of different shows. And before I end the video, I'm just going to talk about one other show real quick that shows you that although I had a childhood very similar to a lot of kids, I also had a childhood that was very different. Case in point, I was never really a fan of Phineas and Ferb. And I get that there's a lot of people out there who are like, oh, Phineas and Ferb was such a great show, and I grew up watching it. And if I'm being honest, when I looked over, like, when I listened to parts of Phineas and Ferb, I'm sorry, I just thought I heard something. When I was listening to parts of Phineas and Ferb, because it would come up on Disney XD and I didn't really have much of a choice other than leave or change the channel. But when I listened to bits and pieces of it, the only parts of Phineas and Ferb I was ever really interested in was when Perry the Platypus was involved in Dr. Doofenshmirtz, which, by the way, I am going to say is like legitimately one of the most tragic villains in the entire, and like in fiction. Like, dude is actually extremely tragic. Again, that's all I have to say. This video is less so one that's organized and I have a big plan for it, and more so a video to tell you, hey, I'm not dead. By the way, the podcast is back. But don't worry, I have a couple more podcast episodes. I have a lot of podcast episodes planned for the next month or two. I have all the podcast episodes planned for the rest of February. Not rest of February, the rest of January and all of February. And trust me, they are going to be a lot more thought out and a lot more well processed than this one. Also, if you're looking at The Office, you can say goodbye to The Office because this will be the last time I use it. When you next see me, I will be in a different setting. So there's that. Anyway, thank you guys for watching Chase and Thoughts with Chase, and I can't wait to see you next week.